Tambo here with your Week 5 core report. Coming off a huge Week 4 where our guy Hoop shipped for $1 million, Week 5 was yet another busy one with our experts and members shipping left and right. Last Monday, RPS was all over the leaderboard, chopping the big Monday Night Football Draftkings Showdown contest. AP, Hoop, Statlers, Adam GQ6, and BX Boom all shipped the first place prize for $5,900 each. Humacom also hit that night, chopping first in several contests for $8,700. Later on in the week, Uncle T continued his heater, shipping for $11K in MLB. JT Hayes also hit for $20K in MLB. But our biggest hits came on the Sunday Week 5 main slate, where Big T continued his heater, hitting on his FanDuel core. Tony's core featured Josh Allen, Jeff Wilson, Cooper Kupp, Justin Jefferson, Khalil Shakir, and Pat Freiermuth. By taking the discount with Shakir and going cheap at running back, Tony was able to round out his lineup, shipping Big T over $128,000 for the weekend. The Tone Dog was not alone, as our members rode that core to some big hits as well. C. Tangretti turned $21 into $1,800. DFS Dad hit for $8,800. Drew C.A. won $7,500. Jamie Walsh hit big for $20K. JDub115 joined in with a $21,000 hit, and Kevin Barnhill shipped over $90,000. To top it off, our guy Swint parlayed a $333 ticket given away by Hoop on our live Sunday NFL show into $3,500. Again, if you're not subscribed to our YouTube page, get it done now. K-Falik also called his shot in our premium Discord and used his member-provided game plan to ship $68,000. I myself used my main core for my attack plan on Monday Night Football to cap off a week of winning at RPS with a King of the Beach ticket. Sign up for a Run Pure Sports membership today and get in on the fun. You have nothing to lose by trying us out. Remember, you're not winning with us, you're watching us win. Until next time, let's keep running pure.
All right, so Friday dump alongside Crane's Kitchen. It is Tambo, and I'm Holden. Hello, Tambo. Things have been going very well for you.
It's been good. Yes. How you doing, Holden?
I'm doing wonderfully. Unfortunately, the kitchen has been interrupted by Eric Crane, who joins us with his backwards Blues hat. It's amazing. The two Americans love going to hockey games. No hockey games for Tambo like we do.
Yeah, not the best. Not the best scene there. Crane, another run, 4-2, buddy.
Yeah, that's
oh, we did.
Great for Cleveland, bad for the under at 6.5.
Great for me. Really, it is all about me. So fuck it. Let's go.
I understand. Wow, that's a terrible path to that ball.
Get a couple more, boys.
Yeah, we were holding before the show. He's like, we're not talking baseball at all. And here we are.
Well, Helmet could cut this out.
Live show. These guys in their bets, though. It's perfect. Go ahead.
Cut it out, Helmet. Don't forget. We'll start now. So, guys, we got a lot of news to get to. This is what we do on this show. We give you the injury news. We react to the injury news. These two gentlemen right here. Crane always says something snarky, and Tambo brings it. So let's go. I'm ready just to dive into this thing because I know Craig's got Craig. I know Crane has some snark for me on this one. The Chiefs are starting two rookie cornerbacks this week. We saw them get toasted on national television. 4th rounder Joshua Williams and 7th rounder Jalen Watson. L'Jarius Sneed is at least there. So talk to me, Crane. You don't even think this matters for this?
I mean, I'm just sitting here looking at the. Okay, no, hold on. Like, has this total moved?
Yeah, up a little bit.
Barely, like half a point. Okay. Is Buffalo any bigger of a favorite now? It's not like we were fading Diggs, Gabe Davis, and Josh Allen anyways. Like, I was playing those guys before this news. Like, is it nice to have, guys that Holden could compete with playing cornerback? Yeah. But at the same time, like, it honestly doesn't move the needle for me if I was playing these dudes anyways.
Okay. You're playing them anyways.
Yeah.
Tambo, does it do anything for you?
Yeah, it's the same thing as what Crane said. I was playing them anyway. This just adds to it, makes it even easier, I think, for Josh Allen to get there. We just saw in the blowout proof script where we talked last week about like didn't matter. And now you get a spot where it could be the exact same thing. I actually wonder why it's not moving. Like 2.5, not that these guys would move the number. I just think from the get-go, that number is bad. I already think there's value there. I know it's Mahomes. I know he's at home. I know he's never been an underdog at home is the stat line, but I don't really care. I think Baltimore just smashes. I mean, just one last thing, note on it, because it's how we try and relate this show, but I do think there's some interesting pieces to talk about in this game, and one of them being Devin Singletary. If you go back to last week, Holden, you'll probably remember the narrative was don't play Devin Singletary in a blowout. He only gets there in close games. If this game stays close, because they are still on the road, and I know they have these backups we just talked about, but if it somehow is close, like the line suggests, you could see a spot here. And he right now is right in that same price range as Ramondre Stevenson, who's basically the chalk of the slate. So while all the talk will be these rookie corners, Josh Allen, so on and so forth, maybe they just end up getting there a different way and getting there on the ground. We'll see.
No surprise that Singletary's receiving props have been up from 17.5 to 20.5. So people are on the over on that one too with Devin Singletary. Different way to attack it. What about the Chiefs side, guys? We don't have injuries really to worry about there, but Tambo, I just think this game is so great. Everybody's going to be talking about it. We should be talking about it. We'll all be watching it. So talk to me here. What about the Chiefs side? How do you figure out who to pair with Mahomes if you're going that route? Is it just as simple, just go Kelsey and move on?
I think, yeah, that's what a lot of people are going to do. Like that makes it the most sense. Obviously using Kelsey has always been a great thing this season, him and Andrews. There is some conversation around that when we get to Baltimore later. I think you can be a little bit different there, but everyone's done with Juju finally, right? That makes sense because he has done absolutely nothing. MVS had a big game last game, so I think he gets the next amount of love there. And then you've got Hardman, who was getting some touches. And so I think he got a rush attempt too last game, watching it in prime time there. So, I mean, he's at least going to be someone that people will mix in. CEH, though, is kind of interesting as well. Maybe McKinnon if they're down. So I'm just looking for different pieces in this game. And for me, it's Singletary, the running backs for KC and CEH, or McKinnon. Treat it like showdown where you set it up based on what you think the flow is of the game. So if you want to stack Josh Allen and use McKinnon as a run back, assuming that they're down, as crazy as it seems, it's large field stuff. I think you could still do it on this slate. So yeah, little things like that, just looking for ways to get different within the game that we know is going to be popular for good reason.
Crane, what do you want to do with the KC side this week?
You know, this is kind of a great week, I think, because I'm seeing Kelsey only projected like 10 or 11%. And honestly, if you make some builds, okay, yeah, I want to get Josh Allen in there. Okay, then I want to get Diggs or Davis in there. It's awfully tough to pay up at tight end. Like that's, you know, I think there are going to be a lot more people that are trying to live in that mid-range and pair them with MVS instead of Kelsey. So to me, I am going to be loading up on Kelsey this week, and it's set 7-8. It's tough because the wide receiver value isn't elite, but we've got some running back value that's opened up. And Kelsey to me is the guy that I'm hoping he's only 10% because I think he's an elite option.
How popular is a Kelsey Andrews going to be this week?
Andrews more so. What Crane said is true. Like that's the factor of if you go and build it out, even with, again, it will depend because everything we're going to talk about today, more injuries do keep popping up, more values keep popping up. And it's really how aggressive you want to get with your builds on the slate. Because I know I was doing the show earlier today with Mayo and we were building out like Diggs, Allen, Kelsey, just to see what that would look like. And it's really hard to get to. Yeah. Like it's very uncomfortable. Once you do that, you're not getting much. You can say, oh, go to Mahomes then. No, that's only $200. So it's not going to do it for you. It is tougher to build that out. And I think what ends up happening is to just take a step further with what Crane just mentioned is you'll see sort of a mini stack. Like maybe it's Allen, Gabe Davis, run it back with an MVS. But then what will happen and why people will feel comfortable about that is because they'll go to like Zach Ertz at tight end in that other big total in the afternoon in the back and forth and be like, at least I still have scoring pieces from both games. And it makes sense from cash games, things like that. But to Crane's point, getting aggressive in tournaments and finding those values to plug in to make it work is certainly another way you can go about it.
Yeah, I think the build you just mentioned is going to be really popular with MVS because people are going to say, well, I want to get this Chiefs exposure. He had a big game last week. He's only 4.5K. I want to play them. Oh, I want to play Gabe Davis. I'd love to play Diggs, but I'd rather save $1,900 and play Davis. That's how people are going to get their exposure. So I like the idea of getting Kelsey and getting Diggs and Allen, getting uncomfortable in other spots.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was talking about Kelsey Andrews in the same lineup. I mean, these are two guys that have this every bit the ceiling, right?
That's tough. That's a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah.
All right, talk to me about that, guys. Talk to me about that. Tell me why it's tough.
Yeah. Well, go ahead first, Crane. You go.
I mean, just because I'm I'm usually pretty anti-double tight end, and I understand that if you're going to do it, like these would be the two guys to do it with, get really weird, really different that way. But I don't know. It's not for me. I'll let other people chase that white rabbit.
Yeah, you said it best. I think, again, I just don't play a lot of double tight end. Of course, we say this all the time. They're wide receiver ones. So you're not really doing it. You're just playing more wide receivers in your lineup. So it's absolutely okay. I'm just saying I haven't played around with it enough to see where I need to go there for that. I also see other guys in better, look at those prices when you go across to the running back and even the wide receiver position. I think we have some other great guys that you can use in those spots to put some more correlation in different factors. Of course, you could build for it. I just haven't seen the need for it, to sort of play it out that way.
Yeah, I mean, it's
bucks.
It's a $600 difference, but like, are you playing Mark Andrews or Aaron Jones? I'm sorry, but I'm playing Aaron Jones.
Well, yeah, Jamar Chase. We're about to talk about some Saints injuries. I'll play Jamar Chase for $100 less because, again, it makes more sense to me. Like, just thinking out loud, if you had Andrews in the tight end position from the early going, it's how you'd have to set it up anyway. And then you have like a Slayton or a Wan'Dale Robinson as a secondary stack there because you're not going to get to Barkley with him. And then you've got him. It's like, why would I play, Kelsey there in the flex when I can play Jonathan Taylor earlier in the day? I can play Chubb. I can play Jamar Chase, Barkley in that same mini stack. So there's a lot of other things that you could do there differently if I wasn't playing Slayton and using Kelsey in the flex, of course. But yeah, not for me.
All right. Let's just a couple of notes here. I don't think we need to worry about talking about it. PJ Walker in for the Panthers. Then Mac Jones is questionable. He's not playing. So anything on PJ Walker, does that bump up McCaffrey, push him down, anybody in, out, or is it a complete fade spot?
It's
Crane?
I'm PJ Walker being out doesn't change anything to me. Like, I'm playing the Rams defense when I can, and I don't think the Rams defense is going to be popular just because nobody wants to pay over $4,000 for a D. But like, I'm not messing with this Carolina offense. I understand that Christian McCaffrey's, I bet he gets steamed up a little bit, and I'm just kind of ignoring this whole Panther situation.
Campbell?
Yeah, I was trying to find it here. It's going to be in my thread tomorrow that I put out, but I do have a little nugget on DJ Moore with certain styles of court, like the setup that he's going to have this weekend and the defense they're against and all that, and the fact that it's a new quarterback coming in. I do have a little interest there just because if you're looking for a stack in that game, it's the Stafford stack, which I do have interest in this week. It sets up very easy. It's cheaper, but you can go to Stafford, Cup, Higbee, run it back with DJ Moore. Most will go to CMC there, but when you get CMC and Cup in a lineup, it makes it a little bit tougher. I like running these wide receiver ones, even though it's very much quote unquote wide receiver one when you're talking about a guy like DJ Moore here, but maybe it's a better spot, better week for him here. And I think, like I said, I'll post the stat out tomorrow on my Twitter, but it's definitely a good one. And I think Moore at least will get a little bit of interest from me in those game stacks.
I will say I could be talked into DJ Moore.
Also, sorry, one quick point. Now, this is more news, Holden, that you're going to get to, but Akers, some personal issues.
That was the next one. We can just talk about that
Henderson
now.
Leads to that mini. You could have a mini stack with Henderson and DJ Moore that I kind of like as well. Go ahead. Sorry. Yeah, I just thought.
No, that was the next one. So let's do it. Cam Akers, is out. You wanted to go with the Rams defense. What are you expecting out of Darrell Henderson this week, Crane?
I mean, look, he's a 10-point favorite at home against the bad run defense. This is just a don't overthink it spot. Like, I'm going to guess that Tambo, you might try and talk me into Malcolm Brown. Like, that seems like a Tambo kind of thing to do. So I'm going to kick it to you, but I think Henderson's a great play.
Well, the reason I was actually do have it down in my notes here, but as soon as that came up, that's the first thing I went to because I was actually messing around earlier with Strong Jr. instead of Stevenson for New England, Pierre Strong Jr. Okay. And then also on the Eno Benjamin spot for Arizona, Keontae Ingram, who is also kind of like a wide receiver style. Like people have compared him sort of like a Melvin Gordon in his prime type build, if that was ever a thing where can catch the ball, bigger bodied, can run through guys. So now we might get a better spot, Crane, here where you can just use $4,000 Malcolm Brown when $5,100 Henderson gets extremely popular. Again, this is large field, take a risk type thing where you can just get the salary from the exact same spot and do it that way. But for me, that's at least a little bit of interest there. But Henderson is the better play just on paper, $5,100.
Okay, guys, Friday news dump. Like button would be great. Just hit it. It's it's an amazing experience. You just go down, you hit the like button. That's the first thing. Second thing, runpuresports.com. Everybody's on a heater. Tambo told you about the core report. He's on a heater. Tony's on a heater. Hoops on a heater. Everybody's winning money here. It's absolutely spectacular. Let's get into Jonathan Taylor. He's questionable against the Jags. Frank Reich said there's a chance that he's going to play. Do you want anything to do, Tambo, with little Johnny Taylor this week?
Yeah, I do. I think, like you said, just the spot going up against Jacksonville, I think is fine. And then on top of it, to me, it's mostly, at least in non-Kansas City Buffalo builds. So that's the key part for me, is like, it makes it really easy to build when you're not going to those builds. Those builds, just like Crane mentioned earlier, they pretty much cannot have these higher end running backs in them or these top end wide receivers. Like, it just makes it so it's going to be Allen, Diggs, or Davis, whatever. Yeah. And then Kelsey or MVS and maybe a different tight end, like, an Ertz with Lockett is what I'm seeing a lot of as a secondary stack. So you're not able to fall into that position where you can play these running backs. So CMC, Jonathan Taylor, guys like that, I don't mind sprinkling them in, because I actually think they can have the ceiling where if you don't get it out of a Diggs or a Kelsey, that's what's going to be a game changer. And you could have one of those weeks where the scoring is lower, even though it's the one big total game. If that busts, you may be getting it from these other ceiling spots on the slate. So I kind of have interest in those types of builds. And in something like that, just final note is I would build it like maybe Jonathan Taylor and then use that Singletary play I mentioned earlier. So I'm not losing out. I'm already saying I'm away from those builds. Why not double leverage the fact that I'm not on those builds and do that? Or like Crane said, you could always mix it up with these Buffalo builds and get some, if you don't go to the Kelsey version he was talking about, you can go like Allen, take another shot on Shakir, even with McKenzie back. It's like little spot like that, but I prefer to do it the other way and just use them when I'm off of that game from the pass catchers and whatnot.
Yeah, Jonathan Taylor, I'm going to be probably off Tambo just because the doc said it's going to be limited explosiveness because of the ankle. If I'm spending up for him, I want him feeling good, but you'll get him at lower ownership. So you're sweating out baseball, Crane. You're going to be okay. Jonathan Taylor this week. Listen, he only had 9 carries in that first game against the Jags for 54 yards because they were getting blown out.
It's a great spot. I just don't know if I'm spinning up at running back this week. Like that's kind of my biggest issue. This is another week where I'm going to be in the mid-range at running back and paying up at wide receiver and paying up at tight end this week. So I like Taylor. I like the spot. I just don't know how many of my lineups he'll end up on.
Okay, let's see here. Do we have more? Yeah, we got a lot more running back news. James Conner's out. Is it the Benjamin show, Tambo, or is this a spot you'll just stay away from because he's juicy?
Yeah, I think Benjamin looks good on that. Like in that game, you've got him and Walker on the other side with the news they have with Penny hitting the IR. So I think that's a discussion piece. But for me, couple ways, like I said, if you want to use Ingram in behind Benjamin, you could do that. You could use Benjamin with Kyler, but I think the other way is just to use Kyler. Every team is beat up on Seattle. If you go Kyler, Marquise Brown, Rondale Moore, Ertz, at least 2, and just leave these running backs out of the equation, then you can still run it back with a guy like Lockett, whereas most people using Lockett as at higher ownership because he just keeps hitting is going to be Lockett with Ertz or Lockett with Benjamin in these secondary stacks. You wanted to just stack it up and maybe we finally get a big game out of Kyler. I would have no problem just bypassing these running backs altogether.
Yeah, I like what you said. My notes actually say it's Eno chalk week. Eno's a good play. Makes me like Kyler even more because nobody's going to play Kyler, especially with this, because nobody wants to play my quarterback and my running back together. I get that. I get the logic behind that. I have no problem with the game stack here, though. We've seen teams, Hoop won all the money the other week with a similar spot with Detroit going up against Seattle. We've seen, Eno Benjamin, Marquise Brown, and Zach Ertz all get there at the same time with Kyler. You run it back with Lockett and or Metcalf. Lockett, they just refuse to raise his price. Do I like a 20% on Tyler Lockett? No. Am I going to fade him? No. This is just a spot where you can stack this whole thing up, and doing it with Kyler because of the ownership on Benjamin is going to be really low owned.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, we got a little more running back news here. So I think it's bullshit from Belichick personally. Damian Harris is officially questionable. I mean, he didn't even practice this week. Okay, so it gets into the Ramondre conversation. Crane, here's another mid-tier running back, man.
Yep. I mean, like I said, I was living in this range. At the same time, I'm not he's still 6K. Like this isn't a thing like, Benjamin where he's 4.5 or Darrell Henderson where he's 5.1. Like he's still 6K and he's going to be 35-40% owned. I could see going under on Ramondre here and just ignoring this spot. It's not a great matchup with Cleveland anyways. They're 2.5-point dogs. The total's low. I like Ramondre in cash. I'm probably paying him. But at 6K, I think you could justify a tournament fade.
And even if he plays, he's
I don't
not
think
going to
Damian
be.
Harris is playing. Like this is,
And I don't
this isn't an
either.
actual.
But I say, even if he did, you're not looking at him coming and making an impact or a dent into Stevenson very much. Tambo,
Yeah, that
Ramondre.
was another one for sure. And I got Gator in the chat. Projected ownership has been so far off. He says, I agree. Last week, the Wilson for San Francisco was projected to be so high. James Robinson was projected for nothing. They completely flip-flopped, and it ended up being Robinson, the highest owned running back on the slate. The week before that, we saw Josh Jacobs projected for 26%, comes in at 6%, which was awesome for our guy Hoop over at Run Pure Sports to ship the Millie with them at 6 or 7%. But the ownership has been off, and this is another spot, but I don't think this one's off. They've got Ramondre Stevenson very high, assuming Harris is out. Like you said, we'll see how that shakes out, but I assume he is. He's going to be up there, and I think that's the biggest thing. I get it, why you'll play him, but we have to remember, like, this is still NFL DFS. It's still the NFL. It's still Bill Belichick and the Patriots. We think about the history. If you've been playing DFS for any length of time or any type of fantasy football, the Patriots running backs have screwed us plenty in the past for situations like this. And I don't know, I've got some interest in a leverage spot here. A couple guys, actually. Myers, I think, is good. Myers came out another big week last week. Again, people just don't want to play this spot. We'll still wait and see what happens if it's going to be. I know right now also Mac Jones is listed as questionable, but I think Jonnu is out again, or he's trending out. That would be for Hunter Henry. Like, you actually have good leverage spots in this game that I think you could play some of these guys here. There's some injuries to the Cleveland side, so I could see it looks like the total is creeping up a little bit. It's up to 43, start at 42. I could see some points here, and I could see using some of these guys within your lineups.
Yeah, Johnny's questionable. Aguilar's questionable. Jacoby Myers is questionable.
If Mac Jones is in, like, I could be talking to Jacoby Myers, and might be the first time I play it.
This
you
is
don't think Jacoby's playing?
I don't think he's playing, but why the opposite? Like, Myers just had his best game with Zappy.
I still got to trust, like, how good of a quarterback Zappy is as opposed to Mac Jones.
He seems to like him, so I definitely like him. And if he's leverage, to me, it's just like a perfect spot. So I actually like Myers quite a bit, actually.
What do you think about the Browns' defense's leverage?
Yeah, it's definitely counts. Like, it's a good spot. I think that's what I was saying earlier. I would prefer using a guy like Chubb over Jonathan Taylor, who we talked about earlier at similar price point. But the other thing is too, Big T was on me last week, and we talked about it on the Tuesday show. Big T, myself, JSU. It is a similar situation here, but man, it's $2,500 less for Kareem Hunt. He again had like 46% of the snaps last week to Chubb's like 54, but Chubb just does everything with his snaps and Hunt does not. Again, we have all these guys in that price range of 57 to 6,100, so you kind of don't need them. I was just saying I prefer the wide receivers on the Cleveland side. Amari Cooper, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Njoku, a pass catcher at tight end. I do prefer that more, but just to say, if you were using Cleveland D, I think you could go with Chubb. That was what I was trying to say.
Friday News Dump continues. Give us a little like. What we do here, if you're just joining us, we talk about all the injury reports, the injuries, and how we can take advantage of that in DFS for Sunday on the main slate. Bateman's out, Crane. Even with Duvernay getting extra work last week, it just didn't all add up. To me, it seems like it's Lamar and Andrews' offense. Anything with Duvernay?
I really disagree with that. Like they very clearly wanted to get Duvernay involved.
They tried.
It's set. I mean, look, I'm saying, they tried, and that's great. But if a guy that they want to get involved at 4,700, I have interest in. They were giving him carries. They wanted him to get the rock in the absence of Rashard Bateman. And the fact that I'm seeing a projected ownership at like 1 or 2%, I really like that, because I need these cheap receivers this week. I need these cheap guys if I'm wanting to pay up for the Kelseys of the world. So Duvernay is one of those guys that I think is a lottery ticket, is an elite lottery ticket, because if he gets there, he's going to get there hard. We saw that in week 1 with Duvernay. And I understand Andrews is a great play. I'm not arguing that, but to me, at 4.7, why wouldn't you roll the dice on Duvernay?
So if I'm rolling out my Jackson Andrews stacks, probably throw Duvernay in there?
I think so. Like, he's 7 targets last week. He's getting carries. Like, why wouldn't you play him?
All right.
4,700. Like, you don't get that kind of usage at 4,700 very often.
I was looking for more deep shots, but all right, 4,700 ain't bad. There's another mid-tier receiver. Tambo.
Yeah, I'm stacking that game up. So I'm in. Like to me, it was good to get the Bateman news just to add it up. I think that's a common thing that doesn't get talked about enough, but to break it out right quickly, is if you're in a smaller field, I think just cutting it off and saying, like, again, there's arguments to if you correlate more in smaller field, you can, because then you need less things to happen to get to the top of that board. But I'm saying, like, in large field, for Lamar to hit his ceiling here, I think more than just Andrews comes along with him. So I have no problem adding Duvernay into some of those stacks. And it allows you to go on the other side with a Wan'Dale Robinson, assuming he plays, or a Slayton with those injuries that are there. He had a pretty good week last week, is only 3,800. I think it's a good spot to stack up in a higher dollar where you're like, I don't want to really risk Duvernay, or he's $4,700. I don't really see the upside, whatever it might be. I can get why you would just go Lamar, Andrews, pick one of those cheap guys on the other side. But Barkley is in play in this spot. I think you can go back to, sort of a bunch of guys in this game. And even Daniel Jones on the other side, he only has to put up 20, 25 to compete with some of those guys based on his price tag. If you want to stack him up and run it back with Andrews, we saw this, Holden, wasn't it last season? You and I were on the show together, and it ended up being the backup, Tyler Huntley, and went to Andrews. Yeah. And then everyone was stacking it up from the Aaron Rodgers side. And it ended up being, if you had stacked it with the Andrews side, you got there, or sorry, with the Huntley side, you got there. And so I think that's another thing that you could look at in this game.
Yeah, we could talk. We might as well talk Giants, since we've been talking a lot of Ravens, because it sounds like you and me absolutely love Lamar Jackson this week, Tambo. So we've got Kadarius Toney and Galladay's out again, but Wan'Dale's supposed to play this week. Who's the Giants receiver we want? If it's not Saquon Barkley, who's the Giants receiver we want? And can Marcus Johnson be that guy?
Gosh, I don't know about Marcus Johnson. I know he's cheap and he's there, but I mean, I look at Slayton from last week. He played half the snaps and got 7 targets, 6 receptions, 79 yards. Look, last week is last week. We talk about that all the time. I don't want to overthink it, but they have all the same issues. They have all the same injuries. They should get absolutely smashed here. The Ravens have some guys coming back. So I think, for me, all the Ravens, like Lamar, J.K. Dobbins, Duvernay, Andrews, that's sort of how I see their side of the ball. The other side, it's, again, I want to hear a little bit more, hopefully, too, on Wan'Dale Robinson. Like, again, maybe it doesn't matter if he has limited snaps, but at least right now, Slayton looks good. Barkley looks good. So you got 5 to 6 pieces in this game, depending on how you want to look at it, in a game that I think could have enough points to make it happen. So we've seen what these guys can do and what type of ceiling Lamar can have. He's the one, in my opinion, that could end up contending with these other guys. And it's also the fact that he's cheaper than Mahomes and Allen. Andrews is cheaper than Kelsey. So you actually get all those savings to pile into your lineup in a similar correlated spot.
Crane, anything with the Giants, anything in this game that really does interest you? And if you're going to stack it, who's with the Giants?
Yeah, I mean, you guys have been talking about Wan'Dale and Slayton. I think they're fine. It's just awfully tough for me to get excited about the spot. But at 3-6 and 3-8, you absolutely have to have interest. How do the Giants just keep getting these below average receivers? Like, every receiver on the roster is just this shitty below average guy. How's it?
You pay Galladay $70 million. That's where it starts. That's where it begins.
I can't wait. How many days are we? We've got maybe 30 hours left before somebody tries to talk us into Galladay.
No. Nobody tries to talk.
Somebody's going to do it.
Well, he ain't playing, so if they do it, tell him to screw off.
If they don't have any other bodies, like, he might get some snaps.
Galladay, he's out. I just said he's out.
Oh, he's out? Okay, thank God, because
you asked how they got to this situation. I said that's where it starts. But yeah, he's on top of the contract. He's not even playing. That's what
I just thought you meant he's not playing because he's bad.
No, he's just
no. This is the injury report show. So he's injured. He's not playing.
Listen here, buddy.
We got it done. Time to move on. The Jacksonville Jaguars, Marvin Jones and Zay Jones are both questionable. You got everybody over there saying that it's unacceptable. Christian Kirk isn't getting double-digit targets. I'll buy into the narrative a little bit this week, Crane. Maybe go back to Christian Kirk after 2 down weeks. But what does this news tell you?
I mean, like, he still had 2 down weeks. I know he had 9 targets the week before that. Like, this is just a spot where the targets before last week, 9, 9, 6, and 12. I mean, the targets are going to come back, especially in this spot. He's in a dome in a situation that I don't think he's going to garner a ton of ownership because he screwed so many people last week, but it's a good spot in a dome. 5'8". Again, he's in that price range that I need. So I'm going to be having some Christian. This is me every week. I'm just playing Christian Kirk every week.
Good. Me
I
too.
have a problem. It's okay. I can live with it.
I love him.
By the way, go Guardians. Guardians got there for us. We haven't celebrated.
Yeah, I saw it. It was
just
good
flipped
job.
over, so I assumed as much.
Yeah. Tambo, Christian Kirk, Jaguars offense.
Yeah, Zay Jones when he gets ruled in. I like that.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been on Zay Jones. I'm going to stick with it. Like I said, I think he's fine. I like Christian Kirk. I also think the thing about last week was Lawrence. So last week was Jacksonville versus Houston. Lawrence was popular though, and it failed. But the reason it was popular was because both sides of that game were very easy to stack up. Now nothing has changed with Jacksonville. In fact, it might actually get better if one of those guys is out. Like if Marv is out, now it's just Kirk, Etienne, who I'd want from sort of the passing angle. Just leave Robinson out of it and play Kirk, Zay Jones, or Travis. And then on the other side of the ball right now, and we talked about Taylor, if you don't like him, they ruled Doolin out for the season. And Pierce, man, he was already getting a little bit of work before that. So I think if you wanted just a cheap stack that's pretty basic, you could do that with the Jacksonville side, flop lag from last week when everybody loved it, and get in on one of these indie guys, whether it's, Pierce, Taylor, Pittman, whatever you want to do, stack it up and then fill it in with the value plays because no one's going to have it. So you don't have to worry about anything after that.
All right, let's keep rolling here. Tambo, you could take a nap because I'm going to bring up Olave, who is questionable with a concussion. But if he's in, we got no Michael Thomas, none at all. Jarvis Landry, probably not going to play with the ankle. 6 to midnight, 6 to 11. How stiff do you get over this news with Olave possibly playing?
I think you're going to be surprised here, man, because I said last week that without Jameis there, I'm not as in on Olave. And my entire Olave premise, and this was preseason, I was like this. I said he was going to crush because Jameis was just going to chuck the hell out of the ball 10 times a game to the guy as the deep threat. That's all it is. That's not Dalton. Last week we saw the targets reduced to 6. He had 4 for 54, and had he not scored that touchdown, which was an iffy ruling anyways, like he just absolutely doesn't get there. Like I liked Olave because those deep targets were going to be there. I don't think we see that with Dalton. I'm more likely to go back to Kamara this week at $6,700. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm just not as in on Olave as you would think. Okay. Like this Saints offense is annoying, man. Like it's just from a DFS standpoint, they're just really freaking annoying because it's Taysom and then it's some random guy. Like maybe Keith Kirkwood crushes this. I don't know. Like I just like Olave for the deep shots with Jameis, and we're not getting that with Dalton.
Tambo, it's a shocker right there. Are you also off the Saints altogether, or is Olave in the mix?
Yeah, I like Kamara. So that was the sort of what he was saying there. Crane mentioned it. I like that more too. I think it's a good way to go about using this game. But man, Taysom is the frustrating one. The only thing I could say though about Kamara backing it up there, like not super interested in Olave, but with Kamara, even last week was like, to me, a bad setup, bad game. Taysom jacked up all these touchdowns and Kamara still went off. Like he had the usage, the routes. What did he have? Like 26 points or something? It was a pretty good week for old Kamara right?
He had 23 carries. He hadn't had more than 15 this year. Yeah,
27.4 DraftKings points. Like for me, on that type of week, I think you can only get better. So yeah, I'm in on him. And I think you want to have that game stacked up. But to me, it's going to be, it's definitely going to be from the other side. It's going to be with Burrow, Jamar Chase, use Kamara in there, and then you spend your salary a different way than others in that Buffalo KC game. So maybe you throw some other guys into it from that game. But for me, that's how I would be stacking this spot up.
Okay. The T. Higgins thing, I don't think changes anything for anybody. Jamar Chase. If T. Higgins is out, does that boost anybody else?
Jamar is already looking good though, right? They got no Lattimore. They've got I think Higgins is, you just talked about Higgins is still questionable. So we have to wait and see that there, but no Lattimore on the other side. Hurst is questionable right now. Like this stack could be thinning. I don't think all those guys are going to be out. My point being though, is if I already like Burrow, he's already pretty condensed as is. Now we might get it even more condensed. To me, I'll actually have interest in New Orleans, in the Dome. Man, like to me, I think this is actually a pretty good spot for those morning games where you could get ahead. And yeah, the afternoon to fade the Buffalo KC game is always going to be scary, but I mean, not when you're playing the way we are, just playing to win. Who cares? That's awesome. Now you hope to fade it. Like
I really hope T. Higgins is in because I'm going to play him a ton at that price tag.
Yeah,
if he's in, because everybody's going to be all over Jamar Chase, rightfully so. Like Jamar Chase, he's a more explosive player. I get it. But if T. Higgins is going to be unowned at $1,400 cheaper, I have interest in T. Higgins. If he plays, I hope he plays.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to tight end. Freiermuth not playing week 6 against the Bucks. Does this move the needle for either one of you? On maybe there's a couple extra targets that go to Johnson and Pickens.
I wrote who cares next to this. So Tambo.
Okay, Tambo.
Gentry, $2,600, 6 targets last week. I don't know. Not super interested, but if you needed a value, I wouldn't hate it, I guess. Again, it's more of a safe play than to me a tournament play, but you don't have to run these spots back. We saw it last week. We can mention it again. Pickens ended up doing well. I think he got 14 or 15, which for his price tag is good. But again, I don't, is it breaking the slate? I don't know. The only other thing I could say is, again, wait and see on all the final news in this game. But I think if you wanted to stack it up, people are definitely going to stack the Tampa Bay side. So, pick a run back. If you want it to be Gentry, go ahead. Because now that Brate's in, I don't think anyone has interest in Brate or Otten on the other side. So you could get your Brady with 2 receivers, Gentry on the other side. That's just an example of a stack you could use here.
Well, let's just move to the defense real quick, and I'll get to Kyle Pitts and a couple other things. Because the Steelers are going to be without 3 of their top corners. Cam Sutton, Levi Wallace, Akila Witherspoon are all out. Plus, Minkah Fitzpatrick is the safety. So, Tambo, can I sell you on the Tampa Bay passing game with Godwin completely off the injury report, by the way?
Yeah, he looks to be picking up steam himself. So, Evans is the guy I kind of like here, actually. I like Mike Evans a little bit more. I think, again, it's with Brady. You're going to stack it up multiple ways, so you're going to have to pick and choose your spots. But you go with Evans and then move on from there. Maybe pick a guy from the other side that we just talked about. But for me, that's how I used it last week. Like I had a pretty good week with my Brady stacks, but it was in smaller field stuff where you didn't necessarily need Allen, because if you had the Brady stack with the right guys, you could still get there. So I think that using it to fill in all the other values, I think that's how I would look at this spot, not needing to run it back with the Pittsburgh guy if you don't want to.
All right, Crane, what do you got for Tampa Bay with all the injuries for Pittsburgh?
All these Tampa Bay guys are fine. Like Evans, Godwin, Uncle Lenny, they're all fine. It's a 4 touchdown team total. Like bombs away on these guys. Godwin will be the guy that I think is going to be more popular just because of that price tag. Evans in tournaments is more attractive to me at $7,000. The problem is we kind of talked about that range and how I liked a lot of the guys in that range. It's going to be tough for me to play Mike Evans over some of the other guys, such as, hold on, I'll pull it up because I have this, I'd rather play Marquise Brown. I'd rather play Tyreek Hill. I'd rather play Michael Pittman almost. Evans is fine, but I have no problem with any of these guys. They seem priced appropriately outside of Godwin, who's too cheap.
I'll come back at you here with, I guess there's 2 more things to get to. First of all, Kyle Pitts, will you just be happier if he doesn't play?
Oh, thank God. Please just be out for the game.
Okay. Tambo, are you going to say the same thing? Just who cares about Kyle Pitts, or what if he plays?
He plays, maybe interest, against San Francisco, but I haven't decided yet. Again, I can't play all these guys. That's why I like talking through it on the show to get some ideas of where the stacks are at, and then I'll play with it more and see what it shakes out like on paper, what I can get it down to. But I don't know. The one thing I'd say, Holden, you're usually good at this. I had to take today just a thought process here. I think it's correct, but I think San Francisco plays Kansas City next week. And so a couple notes. You're good at the stuff from the betting side. It's a 5.5 home dog, Atlanta, which is usually like an auto bet type thing. When you get a 5 or 5.5 point home dog, a lot of people think it hits at over 60-something%. So there's
great teaser spot.
Yeah, they've covered every game so far, right? They're 5-0 against the spread. Sorry, not covered it yet. They're 5-0 against the spread. Atlanta. It's West Coast traveling to East to play early, and they play Kansas City next week for San Francisco, and they might have injuries. We're still waiting on Bosa and guys like that. We got to see what happens with their setup. So what do you think about this spot being a little bit more competitive than normal with the San Francisco-Atlanta game?
Me and JJ did the player prop show, but we also talked about teasers. He loves the Falcons. He loves backing the Falcons here.
Yeah.
So that was our teaser. We were talking about that one. There's a couple other games, but I said, which one do you feel best about? He goes, I'm hammering the Falcons. So, at the very least 11.5, but you're on to something here, because 5.5 is just a weird number, first of all, but no, there's no doubt there's a lot of sharp people that are thinking that the Falcons can straight up pull this thing off. At the very least, it's close.
Yeah, I think because of that, I will just add one more piece because this is interesting to me. Big T brought it up last week and he dunked on me with this one like he usually does. But he said, don't play Kittle last week. Because what I had brought up last week was a good little tidbit, a good nugget I posted on my Twitter, was that he actually hadn't blocked for Trent Williams like people thought. Everyone on Twitter was converting George Kittle to a left tackle. The stats did not bear that out. And he had almost caught that touchdown in prime time, didn't get the second foot in. He caught a couple big catches over the middle, that type of thing. Last week, Kittle comes out 4 for 43 on the literal first drive of the game. And then on the fourth catch, he fumbled it. And so then he didn't see the ball really the rest of the game. But Big T told me, he said, you want to play him in a game that's tight. And everyone assumes this game won't be tight because it's San Francisco against Atlanta. Who cares?
I think it'll be, yeah.
But Atlanta has kept it close. He's $5,100. He's a great pivot in my eyes. Wow. $200 more than Zach Ertz and just $500 more than Higbee. Those two are very popular plays this week. And you don't need to run it back or anything. You're just plugging it in as a one-off that you think could somehow come close or get there towards Kelsey and Andrews up above. So I actually think it's a pretty interesting spot for Kittle this week if you think the original points I made are true.
Yeah. Yeah, there are people. There's a lot of people that are talking about backing the Falcons this week. And yes, just out of the principle, a lot of guys don't bet more than 3 on the road. So there you go. Crane, I'll just bring this one to you. I don't think we're playing Najee Harris this week, but he did say he pulled his steel plate out of
What
his
does this
shoe.
even mean? I saw this.
Well, he was playing because his foot's been messed up. He had a steel plate in there, an orthotic, I suppose. Now he's taking it out, and he was asked, "Are you 100%?" He goes, "Yeah." So is there hope for Najee Harris this year?
No.
Okay, Tambo.
It's just funny to me, like they make it so extreme, like a steel plate. Like I'm sure it was like literally an orthotic made
it's an orthotic.
Technically had steel in it. It probably weighs like a quarter of a pound or something. Nothing special. Like he took a steel plate out of his cleat, and now he's back, and there's gonna be people talking. I saw
this note.
He'll be so much faster now. He'll be so much faster.
I really saw this note and thought like you were just trolling. I was like,
no, because here's the deal. If anything, it could be a mental thing, where he's playing with something in his foot and it has been messing with him. I personally think he's playing with a list, Frank, and an offensive line that sucks, but
their line is so bad, man. It doesn't matter.
I also think he doesn't look as explosive. So maybe taking this thing out will help, but there's no Najee this week. We don't got to worry about it.
And I don't even know if he's usually pretty truthful from what I recall. And he's talked already a couple times in the media now about getting Jaylen Warren more involved. Like they might as well. The line sucks. Just tip it off to him and let him go with it. He looks pretty good actually when he does get going. I can't get there really, but I'm saying in general, thinking out loud, it's just more of a reason not to like Najee.
All right. That's the dump, ladies and gentlemen. Tell your friends. When's the next time we catch you, Tambo?
Tell your friends about the dump on YouTube. Run Pure Sports, baby.
What you did Friday afternoon.
Sunday morning, 8:45 Eastern. We're there. I'm always there hosting, kicking off the free show before the morning wood. And then if you guys aren't a member at Run Pure Sports, get over there because the Up to Lock show is solid, has everything that you need with all the final news coming out. NBA is on the way. So a lot of great things going on at runpuresports.com.
So from 8:45 Eastern until lock, we're live.
Yes.
You got Tambo's show, Cranes on the Wood with Tony and Hoop. And then I'll do Up to Lock with JSU and Dunkel from the bet side. And Dunkel's a pretty damn good DFS player too. So you get everything you need there. Thanks for checking out. Hit the like button on the way out. For Tambo and Crane, I'm Holden. Helmet, get us out of here.